You need to get out of my seat." The demand cut through the quiet hum of the jet cabin. I looked up from my coffee, my pilot's uniform clearly visible in the morning light slanting through the window. The woman blocking the aisle was brandishing her boarding pass like a weapon, her voice trembling with agitation. She was already demanding security, her voice rising to a pitch that turned heads from the front of the cabin to the back. The entire plane was watching this unfold. But what this furious passenger didn't know was who I really was, and that her very public meltdown was about to backfire in the most spectacular way. I kept my face a neutral mask, but beneath it, a familiar frustration simmered. Another day, another tyrant of row 2. My coffee, now forgotten, was going cold. The tension in the cabin thickened like humidity before a storm. Passengers, previously lost in their books and devices, were now whispering, craning their necks toward the commotion. Her voice, a sharp, grating instrument, cut through the air again like a buzzsaw. "I'm not moving until he gets out of my seat," she barked, crossing her arms over a sequined blazer. Her chin was lifted, her posture a declaration of war. A wave of her perfume, something overpowering and floral, hung in the air, mixing unpleasantly with the sterile scent of recirculated cabin air. I remained seated, deliberately calm, my fingers loosely gripping the leather armrest. "Ma'am," I said, my voice even and low, a stark contrast to her shrillness. "This is seat 2A. It's assigned to me." "Don't you, ma'am, me," she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "I am a platinum member. I booked this seat months ago. And you," she waved a dismissive, bearing hand at my uniform, "are clearly in the wrong section. You're crew, not a customer." That last line landed with a thud, eliciting a few quiet gasps from the surrounding passengers. I could see a businessman 2 rows behind me shake his head slightly and mutter something like, "Oh boy, here we go." He adjusted his noise-canceling headphones, but didn't put them on, clearly not wanting to miss the show. A flight attendant hurried over, her name tag reading Emily. She was young, her expression a careful blend of professional politeness and visible stress. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her voice a soothing balm that had no effect on the raging fire in front of her. The woman, who I would later learn was named Lauren, immediately pointed a quivering finger at me, her voice loud enough for the entire first-class cabin to hear without straining. "He's sitting in my seat. I checked in early, I specifically selected it, and now he's pretending like it's his. He needs to be removed." Emily's gaze flickered from Lauren's furious face to me, then down to the tablet in her hands. Her eyes scanned the passenger manifest, and I saw a brief flicker of understanding cross her face, but she hesitated. Deadheading pilots, flying as passengers to their next assignment, were often listed under crew assignments, not the primary passenger manifest available to all crew. She knew the protocol, but she also knew outing me immediately could escalate the situation further. She was trying to be diplomatic. "Ma'am," Emily said gently, "I'll be happy to double-check that for you. Could I please see your boarding pass?" Lauren let out a dramatic huff and fumbled for her phone, scrolling through it while muttering audibly about incompetent staff and the decline of airline service. She finally found the digital pass and thrust the screen toward Emily's face. Emily leaned closer, her polite smile fixed in place like a mask. "Thank you," she said, her fingers tapping a few commands into her tablet. A moment passed. "This says seat 2B, ma'am." Lauren blinked, her aggressive posture deflating for a fraction of a second. A frown creased her brow. "No, that's wrong. That can't be right. I booked the window seat. I'm afraid 2B is the aisle seat, and 2A," Emily gestured toward me, "is already assigned." It seems there was no error. Lauren's face contorted, disbelief warring with indignation. "No, no, no, no. That's not right. This man must have switched the seat numbers. I've seen it happen. People steal seats all the time, especially the good ones." I could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on me, silent spectators in this bizarre theater of entitlement. I finally met Lauren's accusatory gaze and offered a faint, unbothered smile. "Ma'am, I assure you, I didn't switch anything. I boarded according to my assignment, just like everyone else." She ignored me completely, turning her fury back onto the flight attendant. I want to speak to your supervisor. Now, or I'm calling security myself before this plane takes off. Emily took a careful, steadying breath. Ma'am, there's really no need to. Don't you tell me what there's no need for. Lauren barked, her voice echoing in the suddenly very quiet cabin. This is harassment. I pay good money to fly first class, not to be insulted and displaced by staff members pretending to be passengers. Her voice rose another octave, the pitch making more heads turn. The murmuring swelled into a low hum of chatter. I heard someone whisper nearby, but he's in a pilot's uniform. What on earth is she doing? I kept my composure, a skill honed over thousands of hours in high-pressure situations, but I could feel my jaw tense. I had dealt with my fair share of Karens over the years, angry customers, demanding travelers, people who believed the price of a ticket bought them the right to treat others poorly. But something about this one was special. She wasn't just loud. She was unshakably certain that the world not only revolved around her, but was obligated to cater to her every outrage. The senior flight attendant appeared now, a tall, composed man named Robert. His expression was professional, but his eyes held a visible annoyance at the escalating volume of the disturbance. Ma'am, he said, his voice firm and resonant. I understand there's been a mix-up, but we need you to calm down so we can resolve this. Lauren turned on him like a cornered animal. No, you listen to me. I don't know why you're all protecting him, but this is my seat. Either he moves or I'm not flying, and you can deal with the delay I cause. The cabin went dead quiet. This was no longer just a seating dispute, it was a threat. Robert's jaw flexed. Ma'am, we will need to verify your claim. Please step aside for a moment so other passengers can board. No, I'm not moving, she shouted, defiantly blocking the aisle with her handbag and a wide, unyielding stance. You can bring on security if you have to. I'm not letting this imposter sit here.
The word imposter landed like a physical blow. After 15 years of rigorous training, countless simulator hours, and over 10,000 hours logged in the air, the accusation was so profoundly absurd it was almost funny. Almost. It was an insult not just to me, but to the uniform, to the wings on my chest, and to the profession I had dedicated my life to. Instead of reacting, I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees, and looked her straight in the eye. You really don't want to do that, I said softly, my voice barely a whisper, but carrying a weight that made her pause. She scoffed, recovering her bluster. Oh, is that a threat? It's advice, I replied simply. But she was not the type to listen to reason. Her arrogance was a shield against any logic that contradicted her worldview. She reached for the flight attendant call button and began pressing it repeatedly, causing the light above our seats to blink like a frantic warning siren.
I'm calling airport security right now, she announced to the cabin at large, fishing her phone from her purse with a flourish. As she hung up, smugness plastered across her face, I simply took a slow sip of my now cold coffee. She was so sure she held all the cards. She had no idea the game had already changed. Passengers were shifting uncomfortably. One man finally gave up and put on his headphones, while a woman seated across the aisle muttered, "Some people just love drama." When Lauren finished her call, she looked triumphant, as if she'd just successfully reported a major felony. "They're coming," she said smugly to Robert. "You'll all be escorting him off before this plane even moves."
Robert sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Emily just looked mortified. I glanced at my watch. We were now officially delayed by over 10 minutes because of this circus. Finally, Robert spoke again, his voice low but firm, the voice of a man at the end of his patience. "Ma'am, for the comfort and safety of everyone on this flight, please take seat 2B for now. Once we resolve this with security, we will make adjustments if necessary." Lauren stared at him as if he'd just asked her to sit in the cargo hold. "Unbelievable," she muttered. "Fine, but I'll be filing a formal complaint against all of you, and I expect an upgrade voucher for my trouble." She dropped into seat 2B with an audible huff. Her elbows flared wide as if to claim as much territory as possible. She continued muttering under her breath about unprofessional airlines and, her new favorite term, fake pilots. The flight attendants, relieved to have the aisle clear, hurried to resume their duties, but the mood in the cabin had soured. The tension was a palpable thing. I sat quietly, hands folded in my lap, pretending to study the safety card in the seat pocket in front of me while whispers rippled through the rows behind me. Then came the final sting. Lauren leaned toward me across the shared armrest, her voice a low, venomous hiss meant only for me. "You think you're so much better than me because of that cheap costume? I bet you just wear it for attention, some low-level staffer trying to play big man for a day." I turned my head slowly, meeting her hateful glare. "You have no idea," I said, letting a faint, knowing smirk creep across my face for the first time.
"You have no idea," I said, letting a faint, knowing smirk creep across my face for the first time. She rolled her eyes dismissively and put on a pair of oversized sunglasses, a clear signal that, in her mind, she had won this confrontation. 5 minutes later, a pair of uniformed airport security officers boarded the plane. The entire cabin fell silent once more. Lauren sat up straighter, smoothing her skirt, her lips curling into a smile of pure satisfaction. "About time," she murmured, loud enough for me to hear. Emily spoke quietly with the officers at the front of the cabin, gesturing subtly in our direction. One of them nodded and started down the aisle toward us. Lauren puffed out her chest, already rehearsing her victory speech in her head. As the officers reached our row, she pointed dramatically. "That's him. That's the one who is in my seat and refusing to move." The lead officer turned to me, his expression neutral. "Sir, may I see your credentials, please?"
Lauren smirked, crossing her arms in a gesture of final triumph. I simply opened my jacket slightly, revealing my airline-issued ID clipped securely to my shirt pocket. The officer glanced down at it. His eyes flicked from the furious woman to me, down to my ID with my photo and rank clearly displayed, and then back to my face. A slow, deliberate understanding dawned in his expression. The corner of his mouth twitched, fighting back a smile. The silence in the cabin was absolute, a vacuum waiting to be filled. Lauren noticed the shift in his demeanor but couldn't comprehend it. "Well?" she said sharply, her voice laced with impatience. "Aren't you going to remove him?" The officer's lips pressed together, a clear effort to maintain his professional composure. "We'll handle this, ma'am," he said evenly. He then turned back to me, his tone shifting completely to one of deference and respect. He nodded. "Captain, should we step outside for a moment to sort this?" Lauren's smug grin froze, then melted from her face. She blinked, a wave of confusion washing over her features. "Wait, Captain?" I stood up slowly, taking my time to straighten my tie. I looked her dead in the eyes. "You wanted security," I said, my voice calm and measured. "You've got it." The officer stepped aside. "Captain?" he said again, the word echoing in the silent cabin. I didn't look back at her. I didn't need to. The collective gasp from the passengers and the sheer dead silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. The color drained from her face as I walked past her, the officer holding the aisle open for me. I adjusted my sleeves and walked toward the cockpit entrance at the front of the plane, the eyes of every single passenger following my every step. Lauren's shocked whisper, a fragile thread of sound, trailed behind me. He's the pilot?"
As I reached the cockpit door, I turned slightly, my gaze sweeping over the cabin one last time. It was a wordless statement. Lauren sat frozen, her mouth half open, her designer sunglasses slipping down her nose, revealing wide, horrified eyes. I gave her a calm, courteous nod, the kind of dismissal that carried more weight than any insult ever could, and stepped inside the cockpit. The reinforced door sealed shut behind me with a muted, final click. In the quiet cocoon of the cockpit, The chaos of the cabin melted away. The gentle hum of the electronics, the soft glow of the instrument panels, the orderly world of switches and dials, it was my sanctuary. My co-pilot, a sharp young woman named Jackson, looked up from her pre-flight checklist. "Everything okay back there, Captain?" she asked, a hint of amusement tugging at the corner of her mouth. I settled into my seat and let out a slow breath, a faint smirk forming. Just another entitled passenger who thought she owned the sky. Jackson chuckled softly. "They still don't know you're deadheading, huh?" "Not until a few moments ago," I said. "But I have a feeling the word is getting around." A few minutes later, as we were running through our final pre-flight routine, the intercom buzzed. It was Robert from the cabin. "Captain Cole," he said, his voice deliberately formal, but laced with an undercurrent of humor. "The situation with the passenger in 2B has been resolved." "She's very quiet now." "I imagine she is," I replied into the receiver. "Thank you, Robert. Let's get this flight in the air." By the time we pushed back from the gate, I was told Lauren was the picture of silence. The same woman who had been shouting threats and insults just minutes ago now sat stiffly in her aisle seat, hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes locked on the back of the seat in front of her. She didn't dare look toward the cockpit door. The people around her, the very passengers she had annoyed, embarrassed, and delayed, were now exchanging subtle smirks and knowingly raised eyebrows over the tops of their magazines. Karma had landed its first blow before the plane had even taken off. The takeoff was smooth, the powerful engines roaring to a soft hum as we lifted gracefully into the pale morning sky. Sunlight streamed through the cockpit window, bathing everything in a clean, golden light. From up here, at 30,000 feet, the chaos of the world always seemed small, petty, and insignificant. But I couldn't resist wondering what was happening in the cabin below. About 30 minutes into the flight, Robert called again. "Captain," he said, his tone now light with undisguised amusement, "our friend in 2B has just requested to speak with you." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? What about?" "Yes, sir. She said she wanted to apologize to you personally." Robert paused for effect, though she sounded like she was forcing the words through gritted teeth. I smiled to myself. "Tell her the captain's a little busy flying a plane right now, Robert." "Will do, Captain," he replied, clearly enjoying this far more than he probably should have. The rest of the flight carried on in peaceful silence. When the landing gear dropped for our descent, I could feel that faint, familiar tension ripple back through the cabin, that subtle anxiety passengers always feel just before touchdown. The tires met the runway with a satisfyingly smooth thud, and the engines roared briefly in reverse thrust before easing into a quiet hum. We taxied smoothly to the gate, sunlight flickering across the polished wings. As we taxied to the gate, I caught a glimpse of Lauren in the reflection of my windshield. She was a statue of defeat. When the seatbelt sign turned off, the cabin filled with the usual chorus of clicks, zippers, and shuffling luggage. Robert's voice came over the intercom, thanking everyone for flying and wishing them a pleasant day. Then he added with just a touch of deliberate humor and a special thanks to our captain for joining us today, both in the cockpit and, for a brief time, in first class. A wave of laughter rippled through the cabin. It was light but genuine. I could only imagine Lauren's face, which I was later told turned the color of overripe tomatoes. She fumbled with her bag, her head ducked low, pretending to be intensely focused on her phone as if its screen could hide her from the weight of her own humiliation. I exited the cockpit once most of the passengers had begun to deplane, my captain's hat tucked neatly under my arm. As I stepped into the aisle, the same businessman who had muttered "Here we go" earlier gave me a wide grin and a thumbs up. "Nice flight, Captain," he said with a wink. "Glad to hear it," I replied with a nod. Lauren, however, froze when I stopped beside her row. She looked up slowly, all of her previous bravado long gone, replaced by a pale, shaky apprehension. "Captain," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't realize. I just thought you were a regular passenger." I finished for her, my tone neutral. Her mouth opened and closed, searching for words that wouldn't make her sound even smaller than she already felt. I was just having a rough morning. I didn't mean to be so. I raised a hand gently, stopping her mid-sentence. It's all right, I said. You didn't know. But perhaps a lesson for next time. Treat everyone with a baseline of respect. You shouldn't have to find out who they are first. Her cheeks burned a deep crimson. The passengers nearby pretended not to be listening, though their poorly concealed smirks betrayed them. Lauren just nodded quickly, muttering something like, "Of course, yes, of course," before grabbing her purse and nearly tripping over her own suitcase in her desperate rush to get off the plane. Robert appeared beside me, trying and failing to hide a grin. "You handled that with remarkable grace, Captain." "I've had practice," I said with a sigh. Entitlement at 30,000 feet is its own unique brand of turbulence. Stepping out of the cockpit, I was met with a few quiet smiles and another thumbs up. The businessman from earlier grinned. "Nice flight, Captain." I just nodded. Walking through the terminal, the hum of the airport felt different. It wasn't just the sound of engines and announcements, but the quiet hum of consequence. Some people spend their whole lives demanding a first-class seat, only to miss the fact that respect will always get you further than a ticket ever could.